Good morning and welcome to BBC News Special on the rioting that's hit London and now other cities across England. The Prime Minister David Cameron has returned from his holiday to deal with the situation and this morning chaired an emergency meeting of the Cobra Crisis Committee, and we expect to hear from him live in a moment. Last night, 1,700 extra police officers were deployed as trouble broke out in a large number of London boroughs, including Camden, Ealing, Lewisham and Woolwich. Violence began yesterday afternoon in Hackney after a man was stopped and searched by police, but nothing was found. Cars were torched and petrol bombs hurled at riot police. In the Clapham Junction area of southwest London, youths raided a Debenhams store and a number of shops, stealing masks to conceal their identities. In Croydon, a string of cars and buildings were set alight, including a family furniture shop which survived 2 world wars but was last night razed to the ground. There were also huge blazes in Enfield, where fire engulfed the Sony distribution centre. Well, London bore the brunt of the unrest, but for the first night, youths also took to the streets of Birmingham, Bristol, Liverpool and Nottingham in copycat attacks. This morning, a major clean-up operation is underway. This is the scene live in Enfield, where a warehouse was destroyed overnight, at the Sony factory there. The problem, of course, engulfing other parts of the country for the first 2 or 3 nights following the arrest at the end of last week of Mark Duggan in Tottenham. The violence was confined to London, spreading gradually from Tottenham to other areas of the capital. But now, last night, scenes of destruction and violence in major cities across the country: Bristol, Liverpool, Birmingham. OK, for more on the riots in the capital, let's talk to Adam Fleming, who's in Ealing. Sophie Hutchinson is in Clapham. But first, let's go to Jenny Hill, who's in Croydon. Jenny, the scale of the damage where you are, we've been seeing from the air, the picture's really quite astonishing. And the same charge being made about the police conduct, that when they were needed, they simply were not there.
Absolutely. I think just take a look at the scene behind me and you get immediately a sense of what it must have been like here last night. There are scores and scores of people who live and work in the area who've turned up just at the police cordon here, and many of them are asking exactly that question: why didn't the police stop this from happening? One young man I spoke to
OK, Jenny Hill,
said...
we're going to have to interrupt there. Let's hear the Prime Minister.
Good morning. I've come straight from a meeting of the government's Cobra Committee for dealing with emergencies, where we've been discussing the action that we will be taking to help the police to deal with the disorder on the streets of London and elsewhere in our country. I've also met with the Metropolitan Police Commissioner and the Home Secretary to discuss this further. And people should be in no doubt that we will do everything necessary to restore order to Britain's streets and to make them safe for the law-abiding. Let me first of all completely condemn the scenes that we have seen on our television screens and people have witnessed in their communities. These are sickening scenes, scenes of people looting, vandalising, thieving, robbing, scenes of people attacking police officers and even attacking fire crews as they're trying to put out fires. This is criminality, pure and simple, and it has to be confronted and defeated. I feel huge sympathy for the families who've suffered, innocent people who've been burned out of their houses, and to businesses who've seen their premises smashed, their products looted, and their livelihoods potentially ruined. I also feel for all those who live in fear because of these appalling scenes that we've seen on the streets of our country. People should be in no doubt that we are on the side of the law-abiding people who are appalled by what has happened in their own communities. As ever, police officers have shown incredible bravery on our streets in confronting these thugs. But it's quite clear that we need more, much more police on our streets, and we need even more robust police action. And it's that I've been discussing in Cobra this morning. The Metropolitan Police Commissioner has said that compared with the 6,000 police on the streets last night in London, there will be some 16,000 officers tonight. All leave within the Metropolitan Police has been cancelled. There will be aid coming from police forces up and down the country, and we will do everything necessary to strengthen and assist those police forces that are meeting this disorder. There's already been 450 people arrested. We will make sure that court procedures and processes are speeded up, and people should expect to see many more arrests in the days to come. I am determined, the government is determined, that justice will be done and these people will see the consequences of their actions. And I have this very clear message to those people who are responsible for this wrongdoing and criminality. You will feel the full force of the law. And if you are old enough to commit these crimes, you are old enough to face the punishments. And to these people, I would say this: you are not only wrecking the lives of others, you're not only wrecking your own communities, you are potentially wrecking your own life too. My office this morning has spoken to the Speaker of the House of Commons, and he has agreed that Parliament will be recalled for a day on Thursday, so I can make a statement to Parliament and we can hold a debate, and we are all able to stand together in condemnation of these crimes and also to stand together in determination to rebuild these communities. Now, if you'd excuse me, there is important work to be done. Thank you.
Of events, Prime Minister.
The Prime Minister there giving his first statement on the crisis of the last few nights. He condemned the scenes of violence that he says everyone's been watching on their television screens. He said they were sickening, the scenes of looting, theft, robbery and attacks on fire crews. He said that this was pure criminality, pure and simple, and it has to be defeated. He said law-abiding citizens were appalled by what was happening, and that he praised the police for the work that they were doing in trying to deal with all the problems. He said that tonight there will be 16,000 officers on the streets of London. All police leave has been cancelled, and reinforcements will be coming in from other parts of the country. And interestingly, the Prime Minister also made it clear that Parliament will be recalled for one day on Thursday from its summer recess, so that he can make a statement and so that everyone, all parliamentarians, can stand together in dealing with this crisis. Let's talk to our correspondent now, Norman Smith, who is outside Downing Street now. Norman, the Prime Minister, it was a difficult situation for him. He had to be seen to be taking control of this problem because, frankly, for many people, it's the rioters and looters who've been in control.
Yes, what we heard from the Prime Minister, I think, was, as expected, the words of support and sympathy for those who've seen their houses burnt and businesses destroyed, a promise to confront the looters and to take them on. But in terms of concrete measures, the two things we got was, one, a radical increase in the number of police officers who will be on the street tonight, an increase from 6,000 to 16,000 with all police leave cancelled. So clearly the strategy is to try and swamp potential problem areas, to try and dampen down any rioting that may or may not take place tonight. And secondly, as we heard, Parliament will be recalled on Thursday so the Prime Minister can make a statement to the House. Now, what is interesting about that is David Cameron has held back from the more, if you like, extreme measures which were being canvassed. For example, suggestions of possibly bringing the army in or potentially imposing a curfew or maybe even using water cannon. And my impression is that the government has been very much led by the police, what the police feel is necessary. And they clearly feel it is an issue of police resources. If they've got the manpower, they seem to think they can quell the disturbances, and there is no need to go for more extreme measures such as bringing in the army or imposing curfews.
All right, we'll leave there. Norman Smith, outside number 10. Many thanks. Well, let's take stock of where we are now after 3 days of rioting in London and elsewhere. Our security correspondent Gordon Carrera reports on another night of violence, looting and mayhem.
Scenes of chaos and devastation. Sights no one had predicted and which have shocked the country. This was a furniture store in Croydon, South London last night, ablaze with flames and smoke reaching into the sky. This morning, the owners gave their reaction.
Why would this happen to us? Because 150 years of service is just gone in a flash. If it is the community doing it, We don't understand. It's not comprehensive. There must be something completely wrong in the system of the country that allows this to happen.
Yesterday there was trouble in the afternoon in Hackney. In broad daylight there were running battles between youths and police. This wave of violence began following the death of this man, Mark Duggan, on Thursday in Tottenham. He was shot by police in circumstances still unclear. Protests began locally at his killing with a march to the police station, but tension boiled over into violence, which has spread across London and now to other cities.
These have been the worst scenes of violence and disturbance on our streets for many, many years. And this sort of violence, this level of criminality, this thuggery, this looting, this theft is completely unacceptable. We can deal with it. We can deal with it with robust policing, with good use of intelligence, but also with the help and support of local communities.
There now appears little unifying the violence, other than a desire to cause damage and to steal. It's led to football games being called off, including the England friendly tomorrow at Wembley, and it's less than a year until London is due to host the Olympics. This unverified footage put up on YouTube appears to show an injured young man being initially helped by others before they decide to steal what they can from his rucksack. The police are at full stretch. All cells in London are now full. 3 people have been arrested on suspicion of the attempted murder of a police officer. Police have blamed social media for helping to spread the trouble and asked parents to take responsibility for their children. In Battersea last night, police used armoured vehicles and say they'll now consider using this tactic elsewhere. There have even been calls for the use of water cannons, the introduction of curfews or bringing in the army. This morning, many communities are cleaning up. They're hoping that tonight will not bring more trouble and hoping that police and the government can find a way of preventing that happening. Gordon Carrera, BBC News.
Well, let's get more detail now on the riots in the capital. Adam Fleming is in Ealing, Sophie Hutchinson is in Clapham, but first let's go to Jenny Hill, who's in Croydon. Jenny, I was speaking to you a little bit earlier, talking about the scale of the damage that we've all been seeing from a helicopter over where you are. The Prime Minister's now announced that essentially London is going to be swamped with police officers tonight. Is that the kind of thing that local people where you are want to hear?
Well, I'm sure in some quarters that will be welcomed, but, you know, the people I was speaking to here this morning will simply tell you it's too late. Just look at what's happened to their town centre. Many of them saying, where were those police officers when we needed them last night? I'm told that when hundreds of masked youths came rampaging down these streets, setting fire to shops, businesses and, don't forget, homes too, that they were simply left here unprotected, according to people we've been speaking to, that there weren't any police officers here for a good few hours, certainly not down at this end of the town. So there is a certain amount of bitterness amongst many of the people who live and work here. Worth pointing out that those businesses that were set alight last night, they're just trying to cool them down now. But many of those businesses had flats living above them, many people living above those. We've spoken to people here this morning who've lost their homes, who frankly were lucky to get out alive. So no doubt while plenty here will be very pleased to hear that there are extra reinforcements being called, and including, in fact, the Croydon Central MP, who has admitted that there simply weren't enough officers here last night to do the job that needed doing. So whilst the pledge will no doubt be welcomed for many people who've lost their homes, seen their businesses wrecked, it's perhaps very little comfort indeed.
OK, Jenny Hill in Croydon, many thanks. Let's turn to Adam Fleming, who's in Ealing.